The Florida Gators made quite a few adjustments and beat the UCF Knights handedly. Can they build momentum from this?
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We're available daily. Get this, and free wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. Happy Monday, Victory Monday as well. I'm Brandon Olsen. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with New York Giants on SI. Today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. And we're going to start with the defense because when we talk about the adjustments that the Florida Gators made and any momentum they may be able to use to build off of that, I think we have to start with the defense because I think that had the most adjustments, especially throughout the remainder of the game where the offense, not so much after halftime, right? But I will say this about the Florida Gators defense against UCF. This felt a lot more like an Austin Armstrong defense than it felt like a Ron Roberts defense, the way that it was called, at least again, against UCF. I know that there were people who were like, Armstrong was on the side and Roberts was in the booth. That doesn't necessarily indicate who's calling plays. Also, people saying, I saw Armstrong with the headset talking. Rob Sale has a headset and talks. He's not the one calling plays either, right? So I'm not too hung up on that. Hopefully we get an actual answer for who called the plays. And yeah, if it's Armstrong, I'd be happy with it. I will say this as well. I don't look at the defense against UCF and kind of go, oh my, they're elite again, or now, or they're so great, or anything like that. I think the defense played pretty well. I did like the pass rush plan against UCF. However, UCF's offensive line, absolute dog water. And I say dog water because I wanted to say a different word after dog. Absolute trash in pass protection. Okay, there's no other way to put it. They had RJ Harvey in pass pro a few times, and that just wasn't good at all. He's very hit or miss. Like we've seen it happen before where he just whiffs, straight up whiffs. RJ Moten, for example, when RJ Moten got the sack, RJ Harvey was in pass pro, which RJ against RJ crime. I think that it was just a horrible game by UCF. And I said this on Saturday night after the game, that I felt like this was more Florida dominated because they played all right and UCF played like crap. And I know people can say, you just don't want to give credit. It's not that at all. Honestly, it's not. I would love to come out here and just go, the Florida Gators are dogs. Like they're out here whooping. But I just don't think that was the case. I think they played pretty well. I think they played above what we saw for the majority of the season. I think UCF played horrible. And honestly, UCF's coaching staff should be ashamed of themselves. I was going into this game going, if I'm UCF, I smell blood in the water against Florida, and I'm trying to attack that in every way I can. And they kind of just rolled over and died. It was very, again, if I was a UCF fan, I'd be very upset with that. I think that Florida had their edge rushers drop into coverage too much for my liking. However, it came attached with successful blitz plans. And I mean plans. I'm not going to sit here and go, because it worked, it was amazing. I don't like to do that because, again, I think UCF's pass protection was horrible. But also, I feel like I'm process-oriented, not results-oriented. So for me, I look at it and I say, okay, like they did a pretty good job developing the plan, whether or not it worked. RJ Moten was successful as a blitzer. You had a few free rushes come in at certain points, and that was beautiful. Specifically, like the RJ Moten one was RJ Harvey had to make a decision in pass pro, and he didn't make a good one at all, and that came to bite him. DeAndre Robinson had his first career sack, LJ McCray as well. It was nice to see these guys. Pop Howard had one too. It was nice to see the defense. It felt like they were prioritizing contain, and through prioritizing contain, they just got a few sacks from it. Caleb Banks played a good game. I will say that. He had a couple boneheaded plays that I really didn't like. The running into the punter thing. There was another play where I feel like he hit KJ Jefferson late and could have gotten called for a roughing the passer, but he didn't. So there's that. But again, I think that part of it was the proper rotations being made against UCF. I mean, they played really 20 guys, 22 guys, something like that. They ended up playing closer to 30-ish, but that was at the end of the game. Some guys played more when it was clearly out of reach. But Jack Pyburn played a really good, I know a lot of people aren't huge fans of Jack Pyburn for whatever reason it may be. Played a good game, right? Jack Pyburn and Bryce Thornton were two of the biggest personnel changes in terms of, hey, these guys are going to play a lot. Like Bryce Thornton played 43 snaps? Bryce Thornton played 43 snaps. Shamar James played 45, and the only person who played more, Jason Marshall, which, by the way, oh my goodness, he has made strides this season. Like Jason Marshall through the first, we could say half. We could say half of the season. It's 5 games out of 12. We could say half. First half of the season, Jason Marshall's been playing really, really good. It's just he's been playing lights out. Last night or 2 nights ago against UCF, he played just balls to the wall. It was great football. He's just like that right now. I don't know how else to put it. He's just like that right now. It's as simple as that. He's moving around. He's playing well. He moved around the field a lot against UCF. Felt like they allowed him to just play man coverage, and he balled out like that. Like he played a hell of a game. He's been playing really well this year. And I think that I've been one of Jason Marshall's biggest critics since I got hired by Locked On 3.5 years ago. And I think he's 3.5 years ago. And I feel like he's been playing really well this year. So he deserves credit. Bryce Thornton played really well. Jack Pyburn played really well. I think Caleb Banks outperformed what we've usually seen from him. I think Pop Howard played more than usual, which was another big thing. That's what I talked about when I was like, oh, they kind of tightened up the rotations. Pop Howard played more. Devin Moore played a good bit at corner, and then Dijon Johnson played as well. But Jason Marshall played every single snap against UCF. Every single snap. The only person we would see do that ever really was Jordan Castell last year. That doesn't happen anymore. So I think that, the defense made some proper adjustments. And again, I don't know who was calling the plays, but I can tell you now, Austin Armstrong's input was more important in this game. I like just watching it. You could see, hey, this is more Austin Armstrong than Ron Roberts. Even if Ron Roberts is calling the plays, schematically, this was a lot of Austin Armstrong stuff. Also, I will say this as far as the run game, counter still gave Florida fits. And I don't even want to hear but it was late in the second, because that's when UCF started running more counter and stuff like that. And you look at that's when they started running the ball in general more. You look at the second half, and it's like, okay, well, they're running counter and it's effective. And I know I had some people go, oh, but that was because, it was late in the big game. And it really wasn't. It really wasn't that late in a big game when counter started working. UCF's one touchdown, a lot of that was counter coming downfield. They had another long drive that resulted in a field goal attempt, if I'm not mistaken. I believe he missed it, or that might have been the one that hooked in barely. Counter to get downfield a lot. Counter's still an issue. So that's going to be terrifying when we talk about the Kentucky game in 2 weeks, but that's future Brandon, future listeners' problem. Now we talk about the Florida Gators offense, which did some things that we should really all just be kind of stoked about. We'll talk about that next on Locked On Gators. When you're hiring for your small business or SEC program, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. It helps you hire professionals that you can't find anywhere else. Find me on there if you want. Some of you have and connected, and I love that. In any given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. I never do. So if you're not on LinkedIn, if you're not looking on LinkedIn, rather, you're not looking in the right spot at all. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Post your job for free. Billy Napier, sign up. Terms and conditions do apply. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free breakfast in the podcast and on YouTube. Also, my Billy Napier comment during the LinkedIn read made me think of last week when Hayden was on the show and he was talking about the haters of Billy Napier, and people were like, "Oh, did he call you a hater inadvertently by talking about people who want Billy fired?" Maybe. People know where I stand on things, and people also know I have always called myself one thing. It's a generational hater. So it is what it is, right? But the Florida Gators offense against UCF had its moments. I'll say that. I will say had its moments. Took the foot off the gas way too early, which I think a lot of us expected. That tends to be something that Billy Napier does with a second half lead. And we said that with the Locked On Gators Insider. See the links in the description below if you want to become a Locked On Gators Insider. We talked about that. The first drive from Florida was elite. It was a scripted drive that just worked out perfectly. And specifically with Florida, that was just a beautiful opening drive, which was wild considering Gus Malzahn gave Florida that first possession, and yeah, it was just perfect for Florida. Billy Napier got things going there, finally successfully got things going, led to a touchdown on the opening drive, had a few good by the way, can we talk about this for a second? Billy Napier listens to the show. Okay, Billy Napier or someone that's part of the game planning listens to this show, because during the bye week, I talked about the Florida Gators needing to add in tight end sniffers is what they're called, right? It's when the tight end's coming in motion across the formation, tight end's coming in motion, you snap the ball while the tight end's coming in motion, he goes into the A gap, for example. You hand the ball off to the running back, and he runs right behind the tight end as a lead blocker. We talked about that. Florida doesn't do that much, right? We talked about it during the bye week. First 2 plays from scrimmage. Florida comes out with that little motion right into the gap, right behind Hayden Henson. I believe it was Hayden on both plays. So we saw Florida break that out. That's all I need for validation of Dez's coaching staff listens to the show, which I can say jokingly because I know that they at least have someone who does. I will say as well, Florida first drive was elite. Then they got progressively worse and progressively more conservative, which you'd think would be a pretty good sign to Billy Napier of, hey, when we get more conservative play calling wise, we get significantly worse. Who'd have thunk it? But that's exactly what happened. You look at the second half, and I understand, it's tough to go, Florida should have scored more in the second half when they had 3 drives. 4 if you include the end of the game drive where they were just, I mean, they kneeled at the end of it. They had run for a first down and then kneeled it. But Florida just got way too conservative, and I don't care about people going, "Oh, Billy scored before halftime at the end." They were fully content to go into that halftime with a 21-3 lead. They were. You know how I know that? Because they ran the ball, and the only reason they got a field goal from it is Montreal had a 34-yard rush that got them into field goal range. And what did they do after that? QB blast, QB dive, whatever it was, whatever the actual play call was. Then they threw a little screen bullcrap thing to Montreal without any timeouts, which had he gotten tackled before picking up a first down, probably would have ended the half with a 21-3 lead. That's the truth. It is, because the clock stopped once he got the first down, and then they spiked it with 4 seconds left. If he doesn't get the first down, by the time they get set up to spike it and then spike it, I feel like you had a decent. I feel like going, hey, they wouldn't have scored then isn't far off. Because I don't think it is to say that. So I think that Florida's play calling just got far too conservative. That was an area where they made adjustments at the beginning, and then once they got the lead and once they felt comfortable, they were like, all right, we're just gonna go and call it a day, instead of sticking your foot on someone's throat. Like, that's what you have to do. You have to stick your foot on someone's throat. But in the second half, we had the first drive for Florida went 10 plays. It was a short completion to Arlis Boardingham. It was a run, which, by the way, the 4th and 1 run, little read option, Graham Mertz kept it, picked up a first down, but that's short pass to Arlis. Run. Good pass to DK. I believe that was the crosser where DK kind of went up and came down with it. Short pass to Tank. Graham Mertz sacked with a holding call. And the holding call was accepted, so the sack didn't matter. But then run, then check down to Montreal, then missed field goal, which, I mean, a 53-yard field goal, a college kicker, I'm not getting hung up on. I just don't do that. So that was the first drive, right? Very conservative. Runs, checkdowns, one far-ish pass, okay? Then your second drive of the second half, which, by the way, Florida didn't get the ball again until the fourth quarter. Short pass to Tank Hawkins, picked up a first down. Run, incompletion to Elijah Badger, punt. Okay. Then your last full drive of the game, Tank Hawkins run, Jacoby Jackson, long run, DJ Lagway, short pass to Tank, little screen to Tank. Then DJ Lagway run, then false start, then short pass to Chim DK. Just incredibly conservative play calling in the second half. That's not going to win you crap, okay? Congratulations on beating UCF. That's a non-conference game. You need to be willing. This is Tennessee last year. You need to be willing to go, I know that we're winning, but here's the thing. F you. And go out there. They didn't score in the second half. I understand you had a scoring opportunity with a field goal, but it was a 53-yard field goal. It's not like it was a gimme by any stretch of the imagination. And by the way, he had plenty of leg for it. Just went to the side a little bit. He hooked it left a bit. But it was just, I hated the play calling in the second half. It was far too conservative. And I understand everybody going, oh, Billy showed fire with the what was it? Running into the kicker penalty. Woohoo! I don't care. Show that aggressiveness calling plays. I've never been one that's like the talking about fire on the sideline thing. I've never been that kind of guy. But you could be better, right? Like I liked getting Tank Hawkins the ball a lot. That was something that I enjoyed, because that's something when Tank committed to Florida, I was like, hey, you can use him how you've used Trey last year, and then you can use Trey how you used Ricky, and then you're opening things up. Just obviously give more volume to Trey. Also, Jaden Ball. Beautiful. That pass pro rep, where I don't even know who it was who he stood up, but picked up the blitz or recognized the blitz, came up and just stood up the defender. True freshmen don't do that often. Okay. That was one, that was an NFL pass pro rep, which obviously one rep isn't deciding your future. I'm just saying that pass pro rep was something you'd see from like a good NFL running back in pass pro. Like that's the kind of thing you'd see where it's like, all right, he's a dude in pass pro at the very least. So I love to hear that. We will talk about the next big adjustment that I think the Florida Gators need to make in the second half of this schedule next on Locked On Gators. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets because it can be pretty exhausting at times. I'm not going to lie to you. I do love getting notifications when it says, hey, this artist is performing near you. Like I've said, went to see Anita in June through Game Time. Went to see Shabuzi in July through Game Time. Went to see That Mexican OT through Game Time in July. Went to the Miami at Florida game in August. Went to 3 Mets games this year, all through Game Time. At the end of this month, 2.5 weeks, going to see Swaco perform live through Game Time. Oh yeah, you can take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code Locked On College for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's Game Time. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. And I will say this. Florida Gators, you know what you need to do for me? And you know what you need to do for the fan base? You need to play the youth because my goodness, like think about what I've talked about today. Not just the scheme stuff, but when I've talked about players, think of who I've talked about, okay? Because I've talked about, first, I didn't even talk about Sharif Jensen, who, by the way, hell of a game on Saturday night. Like that was just elite play from the slot, the star. Again, I don't care what you want to call the position. It was a hell of a game by Sharif Jensen as well. And I was talking to someone yesterday, and I was like, look, I feel like his usage. I'm not saying he's as good as this player. I'm not saying his skill set is the same of this player. What I am saying is that Sharif Jensen's usage should be similar to that of Devin Witherspoon with the Seattle Seahawks, who in college was an elite cornerback. NFL has gone to the slot and has been elite there as well. He's just a dog. Sharif Jensen is, I said in the summer and spring and last year and prior to, one of the most dynamic defensive players that you have. He needs to play more. Played a hell of a game, right? Sharif Jensen, a guy we've talked about. Okay? Pop Howard, a guy we've talked about a lot. LJ McCray, who had a sack, didn't play a ton, but had a sack. Cam James has been very good all year. Cameron James has taken huge strides through last offseason, through this season. Bryce Thornton, another one that we talked about a lot. Who else have we talked about? Jack Pyburn, TJ Searcy, Dijon Johnson, all those guys defensively, right? And then you talk about the offense, and we talk about of course, the DJ Lagways. We talk about the Jaden Baws. We talk about the Tag Hawkins. We talk about Tony Livingston, who did not play on Saturday against UCF because he was ruled out with injury. We talk about Bryce Lovett on the offensive line. We've talked about Kanaji Harris on the offensive line. We've talked about so many players. And do you know what all the players I named have in common? Youth. the Florida Gators need to play more of their youth. And that's the thing that's I don't want to say too obvious or like act like it's egregious that they're not playing, because I do think that there have been plenty of veteran players who have played well, right? And I don't think that that's absurd to say. RJ Moten's played better than people have given him credit for. I don't think he's played awesome, but he's played good enough where I go, okay, or he's done his job enough where I don't say, hey, those 10, 15 snaps he's getting, need to give them to Miles Graham or Aiden Childs. I'm not too hung up on that. It's just not something that I'm going to get hung up on for rotational snaps when I think you're playing pretty quality. Jason Marshall's been playing really well this year. You've had quite a few veteran players that still play pretty well, where I don't think it's egregious to not play the young guys. But I do think you need to play the young guys more. Like the veteran players should still play, obviously, and should still start at a lot of spots. But the young talent on this team is really freaking good. And I think that when you look at some of the strides that guys have made just from the start of the season through to this point, you can see them kind of piecing things together as they're getting more playing time. A Sharif Denson, a Cameron James, like guys like that are getting better as they get more experience. And it's evident when you watch Jack Pyburn, as he's been getting more reps, has gotten better. Bryce Thornton, as he's been getting reps, has gotten better. I think that, you give them a good 35 to 40% of the snaps for the backups that play. You give them the 35 to 40% of the snaps, and then we're talking about, okay, well, they're kind of making things happen, kind of making quick strides. And we've seen all the young players that Billy Napier has brought in, and we've talked about all the youth and the youth movement and the blue chip Billy and the big recruiting classes and all these things. They're playing really freaking good right now. Well, really well right now, okay? They're playing really well right now. And I think that you can kind of look at it and justifiably, again, not for every player, but justifiably, you can look at it and say, hey, maybe they should play more. A Dijon Johnson, maybe he should play more opposite Jason Marshall. You can look at someone like Cam James and say, hey, maybe he should play more somewhere along the defensive front. And that's one thing with a guy like Cam James, is that he can play all over. Obviously not on the interior, but he could play with a hand in the dirt as like a 5. He could play as a jack. He could play multiple spots. He can do a lot. You've got guys that can move around the formation, that can play, and you can play them all. Florida Gators for this back half of the schedule need to play their youth more, especially when you consider this is one hell of a stretch that you're about to start, right? Tennessee, despite their loss. Like also, Tennessee losing against Arkansas, I think makes it worse for Florida. I know that people can look at the game and go, oh, well, if Arkansas can beat them, Florida can beat them. And people can look at the game and go, hey, well, if they're not that good, then we got that. Maybe they're getting defeated. No. When there's a huge upset like that, I hate being the team that plays after that. I hate being the team that plays Tennessee after they got upset by Arkansas. I'd hate being the team that plays Alabama after they get upset by Vanderbilt. Because you look at what they're about to do. I hate being the team that plays Ole Miss after they lose to Kentucky. Because you look at what they can do and you go, oh, well, now they're mad. They've already lost a game and they really don't want to lose another. And so I'd hate to be that, right? I'd hate to do that. Just doesn't sound like a fun spot to be in. And so I look at the Tennessee game, I look at the rest of the season, and I say, okay, there have been some losses that probably shouldn't have happened. You've still got a really tough stretch. You're going to need your young guys ready to play in case veterans go down. It's worth it. Play the young guys. Also, some of them are your better players at their position. Just saying. Thanks for Locked On Gators, your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free wherever the podcast and on YouTube. We'll be back tomorrow. Talk more Florida Gators football. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with New York Giants on SI, and I'll see you all next time.